Hello everyone, we're back with another guide, this time for Celeste, my favorite character. In this guide, we're first going to go over Celeste's playstyle, then we're going to talk about her abilities and some nuances to them, then we're going to talk about some combos and ways to land your ultimate, as well as your other abilities, and then we're going to move into builds and what SUPERVIVE 1.0 and the Armory brings to Celeste and what you can actually look for. And then finally, we're going to take a look at a gameplay review of a game I played on stream and break down my thought process of exactly what I'm doing. So let's get into it. Celeste is one of the few controllers in SUPERVIVE and excels at holding space for her team. She often doesn't do the most damage in the game, but the zone control she brings to her team is very good. She's a character that is fairly simple to play, but has a lot of depth and outplay potential. Celeste is easily my most played hunter by far, and I've won a lot of tournaments playing her. Right now, people might say she's weak or not as strong as she used to be, but I still believe if you're really good at the character, you can make it work. But now let's get into the abilities. Celeste's primary attack is called Ice Darts. Use 0 LMB and hold it to throw out 8 ice darts that will home to a target. If you continue holding it longer, you will throw out 3 extra long ice darts that don't have homing. These will also deal double damage. Whenever you hit 8 shots on a target, they will explode and take shatter damage from your passive. Celeste's bread and butter is about landing this shatter onto her enemies and doing AoE damage as well as a big portion of her burst. Probably the most common question I get on Celeste is why do I have these last 3 ice darts and when do I actually use them? And the answer I give is always the same. It depends, alright? It depends on the situation, it depends on a lot of things. But something to keep in mind is between your LMBs, you have a reset period where you cannot shoot. You can actually look at the middle of your mouse here and you can see the kind of how many ice darts you have left before it starts slowing down and shooting the last 3. In general, I say that if you need the range, you can shoot the last 3 ice darts, or if your target is on around 6 or 7 stacks, or very low HP, that is when you should use your last 3. So for instance, I'm firing at this target and I miss my first 2, then I hit the last 3. So it's used in a situation to kind of use the extra range and not homing to kind of guarantee your last 3 ice darts. It is just something that you're going to have to get used to and feel out on when you think it is best to use and when you think that you should just reset your LMB to get going to the next one. You can also use the last 3 LMBs to spike people because they might not expect you to have the extra range. If I was a new Celeste player, one of the things I would practice a lot is just landing your 8 LMB shots while you're moving and kind of just reset whenever you can. If you ever miss one of your 8 shots, you can use your last 3 LMBs to kind of finish off the shatter proc. To say I missed my first 3, and then I hit the rest, then I can use my last 3 to kind of finish off the shatter proc. Doing that game is a lot harder, but it is something that really distinguishes a good Celeste player from a great Celeste player. Let's say that you have your target, maybe you have them at like 5 stacks and they're about to like get away. You can always just tap an LMB on them to kind of keep the stacks rolling if you don't want to get slowed by using your LMB. I did want to talk about a bug regarding the last 3 LMBs. If you do not have a vision of an opponent, they will not give you the extra range. For instance, I'm going to fire here. They barely give any extra range, whereas I get vision of the strike bot here, and they will go significantly further. That's a bit of a bug, but it's not a huge one. But just so you know, why are my LMBs not going as far? This could be one of the reasons is you need vision of an opponent for some reason. Finally, regarding her ice darts, I do want to talk about the homing aspect of them. So right here you can see my range reaches about right here, but with the homing, our range actually goes slightly further, almost hitting the target here. So Celeste does have a lot of range, and you can throw these ice darts as a more preemptive way to predict where your enemy is going to run. Sometimes when I'm being chased, I sometimes kind of spread out the ice darts as a way to kind of guarantee some hits, depending on which way they go. The thing I want to talk about is her passive shatter. Whenever you kill an enemy that is chilled, they will shatter, dealing AoE damage around them. This is most commonly used whenever you're fighting minions, but it can help against players as well. So for instance, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to let them get the shield. I'm going to shoot this guy. He's going to explode and these are going to explode and then they will go off. So that's kind of like the chain reaction. However, something I wanted to point out regarding your shatter passive is that if you kill something with your shatter exploding on a nearby enemy, it will not actually apply the shield to a target unless they actually survive that hit. So I'm going to try to shatter this guy here, and these 2 die as from the shatter, and so they do not actually proc the AoE around them. This guy's probably gonna die too, and so then we get no AoE around them. And so sometimes there are situations where technically it could be faster for the enemy to get the shield off. And if they group up, we actually get the explosions here from the mobs dying because they got hit from the shield of our LMB Shatter. It's kind of like a weird thing that you maybe need to play around if you're really trying to min-max everything, but not something that you need to focus on a ton. But just know that it kind of exists and it's kind of like a weird funky mechanic. Next up is Celeste R&B Cryosphere. This ability has received some changes since the beginning of open beta. Use Cryosphere, you just throw it out at a target. The first enemy hit, it will deal damage. However, the key part here is the closer you are to the target, the less damage it'll do, and the more slowing it will do. For instance, at max range here, it'll do around 377. I could go even a bit further. And then at minimum range here, it's 211. One thing I want to point out here is that the max range is very, very finicky, because if you go as far as you possibly can, it's 423, but if you step up even like a few little steps, you're losing out on almost 80 damage or so. So getting that max range and learning the exact range of how far you can shoot this ability is super important and will get you way more damage. And then finally, this ability also leaves down a ground circle that will deal AoE damage and slow targets in it. Sometimes you don't even need to throw the Ice Spear on a target, you can just use it while you're running away to block off chokes or zone out enemies. And then finally, this ability also does explosive damage. If you don't know explosive damage, it pretty much just does destructible damage to things in the terrain, such as trees or Oath's Shield or other various things that you can find within the world. Now moving on to her left shift skate. This is my favorite mobility spell in the entire game. To use the ability, you just hold down your left shift and you can go pretty far. You can also just tap it for a shorter dash, or you can hold it a medium length for a medium dash. Depending on how long you hold the button, that will change what the cooldown is. So for a longer dash, it's around 10 seconds, whereas if you do a shorter one, it goes down to 4 seconds. It's always something that you need to be thinking about whenever you're playing Celeste, because you don't want to use your dash too much, because you are putting on a longer cooldown. Additionally, with this ability, it empowers your ice darts to deal 2x damage. A common way to practice using your ice darts plus your skate together would just be to ice dart and kind of skate around the target. It's a really good practice and warm up for just landing all of your LMBs while you are in that kind of curving motion. Something else is that her dash is called skate and it doubles your damage whenever you are skating. That also means you are skating on the grind rail. As these autos are doing 61 damage, whereas normal autos would deal 31. Using grind rails in places like the grind or other areas in the map can actually net you more damage, which is kind of funny. There's not many characters that have that kind of interaction. Additionally, with Celeste dash, you usually want to be gliding after you are dashing, for instance like this, or maybe a little bit longer dash. One thing that you don't want to really be doing as you're walking around the map is using your full dash, alright? Because if you use your full dash and then you run into an enemy, well, you hope your wall blocks them or something, but you might be cooked. So generally when I'm moving around the map as Celeste, I'm just half dashing or short dashing and then using my glider. Cool. Additionally, with your dash, you are actually able to use your food as well as your armor, repair kits, and hyperbiomes while you are dashing, which is super good, especially when you're running away in the abyss or something like that. So for instance, you could dash and then you can start eating. It's something that I use at least every game and can actually save you a lot. You can also use your repair kits. I'm just full armor, so I can repair. There's a lot of nuance to this ability, and we're going to get into that more when we talk about combos. Next up, Celeste Q Frozen Barricade. This ability summons a wall that blocks projectiles and pushes enemies away. If you press the button again, you can pause the wall, which will extend the duration. This ability can be finicky sometimes, but when used correctly in a lot of matchups, it can be the game decider. For example, you could use it to block other Celeste ults, or even void stuns, or even kingpin hooks. So just experiment, but make sure that you're using the wall early enough where the wall actually forms before the enemy hits you. And lastly, her ultimate Chilling Finale. Become invulnerable, slow enemies around you, and then after a delay, stun enemies around you. One thing to note about this ability is that whenever you are around 80% the way through, you can activate it again to stun early. However, it will deal less damage if you activate it right away. Whereas if you wait for the full duration, it will deal more damage. For instance, that's at 645, and this is going to do a bit less, 431. You kind of get rewarded for trying to hold the ult longer versus shorter. This ultimate is probably one of the most impactful ultimates in the entire game, but at the same time, it's probably one of the hardest to land. Learning how to use this ultimate is super important, and it really is what decides a good Celeste versus a bad Celeste. We're going to have a whole section that goes over how to land an ultimate on Celeste, because as you increase in skill level, it becomes very difficult, and you're going to need to know every trick that you can to land this ability. We're going to start out with some basic combos, but then we're going to get to some more nuanced ones, and then we're going to be talking about our ultimate. So first off, whenever you're fighting an enemy, generally it's a good idea to, whenever you fire your first 8 shots, in between the 8 shots and the last 3, if you don't want to use the last 3, that's when it's a good idea to throw out an R&B and kind of reset your attack pattern. So I'm shooting out 8 shots, or roughly 8 shots, and then I'm throwing out an R&B. And I have a lot of muscle memory on this champion, or hunter, but, you know, just get it down, practice on the target dummy. And it isn't super necessary every time, but it is ideal for DPS in some situations. The next thing I would want to talk about is using your dash in combination with what we were talking about. So you dash, and then you use your RBs whenever you get 8 stacks. Do this one again. There I did my RB a little bit too early. Additionally, sometimes it could be better to use your RB first, as it does that extra damage and slow to make your LMBs easier. You do have 2 charges of your RB, and so sometimes using them back to back is good to do bonus damage, but sometimes it's better to spread them out over time and, you know, get people's dashes and then follow it up once they say they dash over here, then you have another RB, right? A common mistake I see from a lot of new Celeste players is just instantly, boom, boom, they throw both their RBs, and now you kind of have no damaging abilities besides your primary attacks. Now we're going to talk about her wall. This ability can be paused in place, and you can actually just shoot through the wall, whereas your enemies cannot. So sometimes just bringing up your wall and just standing around it and kind of playing Ring Around the Rosie is a really good way to stop enemies from killing you while you also can kill them. I'm going to put up against this KB bot, and I'm just going to kind of walk around, and the whole time I can shoot him. Obviously a real player wouldn't try to run through the wall here, but you get the idea. Additionally, with our wall, you can actually cancel with your glider to stop the animation. For instance, right here, I'm LMBing, I pull out my wall, and I actually can't use any damaging spells. However, if you are using your LMB and you want to keep firing, but you kind of want to block an important spell, you can wall, glide to cancel it, and then keep firing your LMB. You do have to be careful though, because you are losing your wall effectively to block one spell, but it is a nice DPS increase while you get to keep being aggressive. Then before we get to our ultimate, I want to talk about her dash and some of the ways that you can use it uniquely. First off, you can use it as just a way to get an increased damage with your other LMBs, or you can actually wall and dash while you're walling to kind of reposition and get a new angle. For instance, say I want to wall this choke here and I'm right here, I can wall facing this way and dash like that, and I can kind of wall this area. Obviously I missed this part here, but you kind of get the point. It's like you can kind of have your wall pre-casted for where you need to go. Now with Celeste dash, she kind of loses gravity whenever she is using this. For instance, if you've ever played Celeste and you've gotten knocked around while you're using your dash, you might fly across the map. Some ways that you can use this is with air rings. You can kind of fly super far, or if you find a fan, you can always place a fan down. As soon as it's about to hit you, you use your dash. You can kind of go flying across the map. There are a lot of different ways that you can get this going for Celeste, and using them to traverse across the map or run away whenever you're last alive can be super important and help you stay in the game. Alright, and now we're going to talk about Celeste Ultimate, the hardest ultimate to land in the game, and the reason being that you have to wait 2.75 seconds in order for it to go off, which gives enemies ample time to react to it. A good way to know when your ultimate is actually ready is if you look under your health bar. Whenever your health bar reaches that U on invulnerable, that is actually when your ult will be ready to press. Alright, There's also visual cues on whichever skin you are using. If it's the base skin, the ground will be slightly brighter. On this skin, you'll see these little, I don't know what they are, but the little things go inward, alright? There'll be like a visual cue that you can actually see. I usually kind of look at both the sound and you look for the letter U, alright? Lately though, I've been trying to land more full ultimates as it does more damage and stuns for significantly longer. To land these full ultimates, the best way to do it is combine it with your dash or some other mobility spell. For instance, we can dash, hold dash, and ulti, right? And these inputs are just holding dash and then using ult. If we want to stop early, if we want to stop our dash early, we just let go of dash. So we want to stop here, we let go of dash, and we're on top of them. Now we can combine this with other things. For instance, we could try a jump pad. So instead of just doing a normal dash, we get some height. We can go over walls, for instance this wall here, and land our ulti. Cool. And the reason why we're actually using our dash in to do our ultimate is to hide where we are actually aiming our ultimate. Because right now, this Shrike bot does not know we're ulting until we appear on her screen over here. She's going to hear us, but she doesn't know exactly where we're aiming or what we're trying to do. So it only gives her around 1.5 seconds, maybe 2, to have a reaction rather than the whole duration. Something else to think about whenever you are playing Celeste trying to land her ultimate is that the angle and like kind of where you are coming from matters a lot and where exactly you are landing. So you always want to be thinking about the terrain and what terrain that this Shrike bot is going to be running away from. For instance, maybe she'd be walking backwards. Maybe we want to place it more back towards, you know, behind her. Rather, if, you know, or do you think she's going to run this way, then maybe we want to place it over here. The placement of the ultimate really matters like a whole lot, alright? And I can't stress this enough. The only way you're going to be able to land your ultimate at Celeste is if you can kind of predict where the enemy is trying to go. Now here are some other ways that you can land your ultimate. We have a classic Roomwell's Hoverwinger, which was actually named after me for how many times I was able to land a Hoverwings and ulti combo. For instance, you just use Hoverwings and your ulti. And that's how you do it. If you ever want to stop early, for instance, say with the Hoverwings and ult, you want to stop right here, you can't because you can't reactivate the Hoverwings. However, we know a little cheating, right? If you use it, you can always just swap your input of your Hoverwings and it'll turn off your Hoverwings. That one you don't really need to use that often, but just so you know. And maybe a dev will fix it one day. Cool. The reason why Hoverwings can be so good at landing your ultimate, one, it goes further, but two, it also lets you keep your dash for out after your ultimate. For instance, I'm fighting or whatever, I can use my dash here, you know, and then I see an ulti angle. I can look for a hovers ulti. I land it, I do damage, and then I like back out or I go in, you know. I still get to keep my dash and it goes further. Alright. Another way to land your ultimate is say you have the fans that you either got from your perk that creates the consumables or you find them around the map. If you put two together, you know, you could just use the fan to go this way. However, if you place two facing each other, you can actually use the kind of anti-gravity effect from your dash to dash as soon as they're hitting, get up in the air. You'll need another way to use your dash, and you can like hover wings plus ulti and land an ultimate from the heavens. Now that these fans drop in stacks of 2, it might be a more common thing that you can do. Obviously sometimes you kind of get stuck, but you know, setting up your ult this way is maybe a possible thing that you can do more often. Next up, you can do a grapple. You can always use your ulti plus grapple. I would say it's not as good. I'd say generally Hoverwings is going to be way more consistent. However, there's some movement tech that you can do with Celeste with grapple. So you can grapple a wall, and as it's touching the wall, you can dash and you'll go really far and really fast. You just use your dash right as it is touching the wall. Cool. There's also some variations you can do with this with the glider, but it's like a little bit more buggy, so yeah. Then next up we also have bungee. You can always put a bungee gum on the wall and use it to land your ultimate. For instance, you can go all the way over here, bungee, and then let go and land your ult this way. There's a lot of applications for that because you can actually go significantly further. We could go over here, land on the grind rail, go up here. Boom. Alright. So there's a lot of application for Bungie, but generally I haven't found myself taking Bungie too often, but maybe times will change and Bungie will become more OP. Additionally, with her ulti, one of the things that you can do is if you ever happen to come by Blinkstone, which I'd say is very rare and probably better on most other characters, whenever you take damage, you can't use this item anymore. However, if you ult, you cannot take damage, so you actually can blink out of your ulti. It won't move the effect or anything, but it's like kind of like a get out of jail free card. So sometimes having Blinkstone on Celeste can lead to some good moments where people, use all their spells on you as you're coming out of your ult, and then you just blink out of it. Then finally, I think this is one of the most consistent ways that you can actually land your ulti, is using a glider feather, which is falling in the abyss and then gliding up, and then pairing that with hover wings plus your ulti. This lets you get over terrain as well as like be above the ground, and so if someone is trying to throw like something that stops you on the ground, like a Celeste wall or something, they're not able to actually do that, right? Sometimes it can even hit over Oath's shield. So this is a super powerful tool that you don't even need hover wings for. You can also just use it with your dash. Yeah, it's a really good one, and I probably use that like at least once a game. One thing I did want to mention around her ultimate is that you sometimes it's going to be an impossibility to land. And that's okay. Sometimes all you need to do is use it for zoning. And in the gameplay review, we're going to talk about it a little bit. But sometimes it's just okay if, you land your ultimate and, you know what, say it misses everyone, but they all went over here, and you have this space now. That's the kind of controller aspect that Celeste brings to a team that other characters can't really compare in the same sense. So if we put everything together, the way to do the most damage with Celeste is to land a full ultimate and land your RMBs on the edge of your range. So for instance, you can go in with an ulti and try to get it just right. I didn't do the best there, but then dashing backwards and landing your RMBs this way. You don't always have to do that, and it's not 100% necessary, but just keep that in mind if you're ever trying to like really one-shot someone, is you really need this extra range from your RMB, and you really need the full damage from your ultimate. The damage difference is kind of massive. And finally, I do want to mention something about her skate. So with her skate, it kind of takes some of your momentum of that you're currently going. You can kind of use it to stall yourself, which is good and bad. For instance, if you are jumping backwards and then you dash forward, your dash is going to be significantly slower, which is sometimes good. It'd be easier to land your LMBs, but it's also sometimes bad because you say you're getting knocked back or something and you are like jumping backwards, you try to dash forwards and then it doesn't go as fast, right? So something to keep in mind, and something that you need to always be thinking about, especially when you're going for these like glider feather like plays, is you kind of need to lose your momentum of going the opposite way. For instance, if I try to do like this, I'm not going to go as far. You see that? I kind of like equalize my momentum, if that's like a word I can use. I push myself forward and then I go in with my dash. It's a very, very small thing, but makes a huge difference. And I don't know how else to explain it other than that. You need to be equalized or going forward with your momentum in order for your dash to go the full distance. Celeste has good synergies with other characters like Void, Kingpin, Zeph, Debo, Saros, Myth, and honestly there's probably some that I didn't even do. And now let's talk about some builds for Celeste in SUPERVIVE 1.0. She actually has a few options right now, and I think that there's many more I haven't even explored yet. I would say right now, I would be leaning towards taking Chrono Gauge, as Ability Haste is a really good stat for Celeste, as her ultimate is pretty long cooldown, her wall can be a pretty long cooldown, and getting your RMB cooldown lower is very good. Whenever you proc your Shatter, whenever you land 8 Ice Darts, this will actually proc as well and reduce your ability cooldowns, as well as anytime you land your ultimate or whenever you land your Cryosphere. I personally think this item is really good on Celeste. It synergizes with her RMB and LMB quite well. From here, I think you have a few options. You could lean into Trigger Fingers, which would just give you increased attack speed to make it easier to land your Shatter procs. Or you could go for Burning Palm, which will give you percentage damage whenever you land an RMB. This could be better against tanks like Kingpin or Oath or whatnot. It's doing a lot of damage because this target dummy has a lot of health, but it does do percentage damage, so if you ever need that. Rabbit's Ball is okay because it gives you your dash and lower cooldown. Your dash lower cooldown will let you land more abilities, and then also gives you a little bit of movement speed. Right. And then I've also seen people talk about Frozen Palm. I'm personally not as sold on this. It does provide a slow on top of your RMB and your shatter, but they're already slow, and it can do a considerably like kind of more slow, but I think you kind of don't really need this slow, if I'm gonna be honest. I've seen people do it and I've seen it work, and I've done it myself and it's worked, so maybe it's something worth experimenting with and see if you like that playstyle. And then we have two more, and I'm telling you, like, she has a lot of options. Tech Claw, which does 11% increased ability damage, which doesn't sound like a lot, but ability damage works on her shatter. For instance, that did 483. This did 435. So it works on her shatter and her RMBs and her ultimate. You're kind of getting 11% damage on all of your abilities besides your LMB, so it's kind of like a big deal. And then we also have long range or long claw optics, which will increase your range by a good amount. So this can just give you even more dueling potential against those long range characters. Most of the time in the current meta that I'm in, you know, who knows when you are watching this, I'm playing against more close range characters, so I don't find much use for the long claw optics. However, I can see if there was like a meta change or something, there's more long range characters that this becomes even better. If I had to go into a tournament today, the grips that I would choose would probably be the Tech Claws and the Chrono Gauge. Alternatively, I might do the Trigger Fingers. I think these are the two that I kind of like, these two setups. Right. As for boots, you have two main options. I'm sure one of these is going to get nerfed in the future, but you have the Rocket High Top boots that give you increased dash speed. This essentially makes you dash faster and go further, which, if we talked about earlier, if you can go further, you can actually land your ultimate from further away. For instance, without them, try to go back to where we were. Before we were like over here, right? So you go a little bit further if you want to try to land your ultimate with these, it can help out. Also, doing short dashes with these is also pretty good. All right, look at like the distance that you can kind of get with a short dash on a 3-second cooldown. All right, so pretty good. And then the other option I would say is Bloodlust boots, which pretty much every time you land a primary attack or ability, you get stacking move speed. And Celeste is really good at landing subsequent LMBs. For instance, I pretty much stack it instantly as soon as I land LMBs, so you can kind of keep this up full time whenever you're in fights, and it's pretty good. I've been using both. I would say both just have their own benefits. I'm not sure which one's better. Try them out. Try them out and see what you like better. And then now we're down to the Relics. There is also a lot of options you could do as Celeste here. One of my favorites right now has been 2-star Resonating Idol and Sunweaver. I had to play a serious game right now. This is probably what I would run. But if you don't have 2-star Resonating Idol and you only have 1-star, I would not recommend it, as it makes a big change. Instead, I would probably run Songbow instead. Songbow is great because it's hitting an enemy with a primary attack refunds cooldowns. Celeste lands a lot of primary attacks, so anything that works with primary attacks and refunds things, very good on her. Likewise with Sunweaver, is whenever you use an ability, your next primary attack, it gets empowered. Resonating Idol just lets you kind of dash a lot, and then you use your RMB and you'll have a lower cooldown on your RMB. So it's pretty powerful, as you just keep getting lower cooldowns on your RMB as you stack it up, and you can still use your dash. Ultimate Diadem 2. I would not use Ultimate Diadem 1. Ultimate Diadem 1 would just give you infinite mana and movement speed and damage whenever you ult, but it's kind of exactly your ult duration. So I would not recommend it. However, if you have Ultimate Diadem 2, if you land an ability, it'll refund 5% of your ult CD. So if you ulti, you can start getting your ulti back fast by landing shatters as well as RMBs, which it doesn't seem that important, but if you can get your ulti back this quick, like, as well as having other CDR items, it can be pretty good. Alright. Next up would be Isochron's Time Staff, which is just flat 30% for it's like 22% base. CDR, it's kind of just good all around. You can't really go wrong with this item. Does exactly what you want. It's just like a very consistent version. But notice how much your RMB gets cut down, 7.3 seconds to 5.2. So it's a pretty strong item, and you know you have a lot of competition here on what relics you really want to go. Next up, like we were talking about before, we have Rumel's Hoverwinger. This is excellent for landing. I don't have my ultimate. Excellent for landing your ultimate. And literally, there's not an item that helps you land your ultimate better. All right, just a super strong item for your ultimate and taking space. And then we have even more. We could do grapple, like I was mentioning before. I personally am not a fan as much with grapple as other ones. You could take bungee and try to do some things with bungee and, you know, catch it to walls and land your ulti this way. It's a little bit harder than hover wings, I would say, but you also get utility with bungee by using it on other things. Something that I've only experimented with a few times is overgrowth on Celeste. You could throw down the trees, like say there's an enemy over here. You throw the trees on top of them, they can't escape. But overgrowth gives you the ability to run through trees, so you can kind of go through the trees and land your ultimate this way. If multiple members of your team have the item, it could synergize even more. And then as for Thunderbolt, I would say that this item, for me, just doesn't do enough damage compared to the other options, at least right now with 1 star. If it gets buffed, though, I could definitely see it taking place of, say, something like Sunweaver or one of the other options. Additionally, you can always go Festering Jawblade in worst case scenarios if you're fighting something like Triple Healer, but honestly, it should probably be someone else's job, but it is something you could do. You can also take Stasis if you want to kind of be like this ultimate stall build where you go in, ulti, stun them all, you know, use your abilities, stall, and then you Stasis. And you stall, you know. You could do something like that. I personally think it's a little bit overkill, and you don't really need to do that. As for the exotic items, they're all kind of good for Celeste, but they're kind of better on most other characters, so I generally, sometimes, even if I see a red item, I don't necessarily always want to pick it up, because I do think that some of the other items are actually just better. I think Dreadstar is really good for Celeste, as it's already pretty much Isochron's time staff, but then you have an active. And then also just the increased attack, primary attack damage and ability damage works on both her Shatter and her LMB, so kind of like a lot of damage if you're able to get like a Masamune or Soul Stealer. For instance, that's doing 614, whereas without it, 483. So it's a big difference. But usually I'd say this item is just going to be better on other characters on your team. But if you're really trying to carry, then just, you know, take that item, you know. No one will know. As for Rewind, we already talked about Blink, but as for Rewind, you can actually go in with your ulti and do something like this, and like, boom, and do some damage, then rewind out of the fight. That's something that I've done before. Like, you could go in and like start a fight with the other team, and then rewind back and like bait the other teams to fight each other. It's sometimes it can be really good, but I think it heavily depends on the situation. As for the perks, there are a few I like taking on Celeste a lot. The one is Dash Engines. I like taking this on most characters though. It's not exclusive to Celeste, but it kind of just solves a lot of the mana problems that you could have. Celeste doesn't have that many mana problems, but this just makes it like really non-existent. Another one I like specifically for Celeste is Proto Factory. Every 60 seconds you create a random consumable item. Celeste works really well with a lot of the consumables like we mentioned earlier, like the fan or jump pad or even UAVs. And like getting some extra consumables just for 350 gold from the relic shop can be a huge deal. Like randomly generating a jump pad can literally be game saving sometimes. If you're doing a more ultimate focused build with say something like hover wings, you could look into taking lockdown, as your stun from your ultimate will land 10% longer. For instance, if you land a 2-second stun, it would be a 2.2 second stun from lockdown, which doesn't always matter, but it could matter. Additionally, with Celeste, usually these red perks are pretty good on you, especially the dash haste or the ability haste ones. Really big fan. If you ever get If you ever get phase walking, actually lets you do some fun things where, you know, walls don't exist anymore, so you can kind of just ulti through walls, and that's very fun. With this also, because it doesn't go all the like if you don't go all the way through, it'll teleport you back. You could stop here and then like port yourself back, so you can kind of like fake people out, you know? Like you run away, but then it teleports you back. So there's a lot of cool things that you could do with that soul, but it's pretty rare. All right, now we're going to talk about how I level up my spells on Celeste and kind of what I'm looking for. Excuse my weird keybinds, but I will be saying the names of whatever the default keybinds are. But I usually always start with my dash in case I get into a weird fight. If I'm alone, I can start my R&B and use it to stagger mobs. So I'll usually level up both of these abilities, and then I will level up my dash to level 3. Getting your dash on a low cooldown, 1 increases your damage because your skate doubles your damage of your LB, but it also lets you escape or catch up or get to mobs quicker or farm, all those good things. I always like to level my dash first on pretty much most characters. Next after that I'll level up my wall, and then I will level, I think I'll be level 7 now, so I will level up my ult whenever I can. And then from here I will level up my ice spear to get the reduced cooldown and increase damage, level up my ulti again, and then level up my wall. And then here's kind of the area where it's like we're kind of close to the late game. If I want to choose Ice Islands from my dash, I can. If I want to choose damage from my R&B, I can. Or if I want to like decide later, I kind of hold off. But usually in this moment, I choose either R&B or my dash. I have not been a fan of the wall upgrade. So say we go Ice Islands here. The reasons I would go Ice Islands is if the circle is ending over a lot of abyss, and maybe we're behind, and we have a dunk character on our team that seems like he is going to land a lot of dunks, as it could give him ways to stand on islands and dunk people. So I'd probably go here, and then I think I'd level my ulti. I think I have it unlocked now, and then I'd level my wall. That's kind of the general area of how I would level things. The main difference between level 4 skate and R&B is the R&B, it does seem like the 45% explosive damage is really good, but that's only on the second part. It's only on this part of the explosion. So that 336 would do 45% more damage, which is a lot, but you actually had to hit the second part of the explosion, which is pretty unreliable. People could just walk out of it, they can dash out of it, etc. And so sometimes going these ice islands, which I will show you some tech with them right now. You can create them by dashing over the islands. You also can make them low in the abyss, which is kind of like a bug. But one of the things about these ice islands is they break quicker depending on how long that you've been out there in the abyss. But they start breaking even quicker whenever you do those low ice islands. So if you do any low ice islands, your ice is going to start breaking much quicker. So if you're ever like, damn, I wish I didn't have these ice islands because the enemy keeps chasing you over them, before you start fights, maybe like you go low in the abyss and do a quick dash, as your ice will deteriorate very quickly, right? So you kind of use it to get your glider fuel back, but then they go away pretty quickly. Alright. Whereas if you want to keep them around for longer, then you just want to try to do it like max height, alright? Whereas if you do it low, they'll start breaking very quickly, right? And this low thing, they can still hit you down here and whatnot. It's just like a bit weird. There's some like cool mantle stuff you could do by mantling on these and then like flying upwards and then like doing a dash ult. But I think eventually that's going to get removed. Just like the ice islands down below, it really shouldn't be a thing. As for the wall upgrade, you can't really go wrong with it, but sometimes like it's not going to get any value. Alright, Celeste level 4s, I'd expect one day they'll get reworked again, but right now you kind of choose the option that you think might provide you the most value. Whether that's going to be the damage from the R&B, the ice islands, or the wall HP. Alright, and welcome everyone to the game review section of the Celeste guide. This was a game that we played on stream just a few hours ago, which if you want to check out the stream is twitch.tv/RyanLemur, where we play Celeste a lot. This game was a game that I was really proud of, and so I'm going to take a look at it for the guide. There was a lot of mechanics on display here, as well as some decision making regarding kind of what I'm doing around the map and what we are doing. I'd say right now this team comp is looking a little bit atrocious in this current era, where Eva is a pretty weak character and not a lot of people play Saurus, but we're going to somehow make this one work and see what we can do here. So whenever I'm landing as Celeste, unlike some other characters that I've gone over, like Brawl and Wukong, you are like decently strong early game. You're maybe not as strong as Shrike, but you're kind of in this like upper middle ground of drops. So I personally don't mind hot dropping as Celeste as long as I have a way out in case, you know, one of my teammates dies or whatnot. So my team decides to land over here on this mob, and I think that we land for this mob and we try to go for this gold here. I start landing over here. This is what I was talking about earlier. You always want to try to kill that healer mob first. Here I start looking over at the boss, but seems like it's not really obtainable. I try to go for a cheeky steal, but ends up being blocked by the KP, and I just dodged the void stun. So it was a bit of a risky play for me to go for, especially in solo queue, but I'm like, you know what? If I get it, it's really good. If I don't, you know, whatever. At this moment, the enemy team's like level 6, so I'm just trying to get out. You know, sometimes that's just what you gotta do. I kind of just run away and I go farm machine, and I get a blue armor off that little middle guy, and I res my team here. I see that this vault has money in it, and I decide that I want to go get it. And I also see dash engines in there, which is a perk that I mentioned that I really like on Celeste. So I get that, and we go to the Relic shop. This game I decided to go for the Resonant Idol 2 and the Sunweaver build as well, and buy 2 food, right? You always want to kind of have at least 2 food in the early game in case something goes bad and you run out of mana. And I do go for that Proto Factory that I was talking about to get extra consumables and buy some extra food. Also, I've been liking this Farsight perk. So, I kind of loaded up. I don't have my grips or kicks, but I have 5 perks and 2 relics. That's mainly because we did that vault, and that vault had an extra 3k in it, so I was able to splurge a little bit on some of my expenses. Here I just go and try to get some mobs, try to get level 7. Looks like a team is on me. Let it back down. This team is a healer team. One of Celeste's biggest weaknesses sometimes is healer teams. She actually does pretty well in them other times, but she doesn't have anti-heal, and her damage is a bit lower than some other characters, but sometimes a bit higher, right? It kind of just depends. But regardless, we don't have anti-heal, so it's going to be pretty hard to kill this team. We kind of like back off a little bit. Obviously our Saros is anti-heal, but like I don't have anti-heal is kind of what I'm saying. I throw out my LMBs, but I decide I'm like, you know, I don't really want to fight this at all. Like, they're level 7, we're level 6. It's like, why would we even try, you know? Why would we risk our entire game to fight this level 16 or 17? I kind of just gonna move on. Buy the rocket boots this game. I see pings on the map. And it's looking like a fight is breaking out. I would have the comms on, but it would be hard to hear me because I'm talking as well. We start cleaning up here. Ooh. We end up getting that guy. So even though that was a quick fight, there's some things that we can go over here. So one thing was, you know, we were level 6 and we saw level 17. We didn't take that fight, so that was good. And we found a different opportunity to take a fight, all right? So first off, I always try to get the loot whenever I can. And then I see that this guy is low, so I immediately start dashing at him. Whenever you get a kill in SUPERVIVE or a knock, your dash will reset. And so I'm just like going for the kill here so that I get my dash back. So I get the kill here. I should have walled this Zeph ulti. Definitely could have done that. But then I have my dash back, so I immediately dash. Even though I don't need my dash to kill this guy, I'm gonna get it reset by killing this guy. So I get my dash reset again. Throw out an RB even though it missed. It's still fine. I have my dash up again. And it's as simple as that. That was like a quick triple kill that we kind of got handed, but we took it, like, we obviously like took the kills pretty well. And there was someone on this res beacon over here, and we ended up not getting that kill, which has been unfortunate, but we see this void over here. We're just shooting through the portal, and TP's to the other side. I immediately start moving. I got scared that was like a Shrike above me, but it was actually just a mob. Let me get the kill on this guy. However, if you notice on the left, my teammate did die, so I'm a bit worried about that. I'm going to just choose to make myself stronger and get this guy's loot, and then I'll worry about my teammate later. I'm kind of going over here. I'm like curious how he died. There's a Wukong that just tanked my entire kit, and then they're getting the res on this beacon. Something that Celeste is really good at doing is throwing her RMBs on top of the beacon to try to stop enemy teams, but in this case, he kind of just took the damage, and so I am running for my life, right? Because our other guy died to the Wukong. So we had to run a little bit. This isn't the best game to start, you know? We did well in the first fight, but we'll see how the rest of it goes. As you can see from this proto factory perk is like I already created a hypervibe, a chunker cannon, and anywhere but here, a jump pad. Like these are all things that like can help me get out of situations like these and help me use them creatively to land a Celeste ulti or, you know, survive if my team dies. So that's why I generally have been liking this perk, especially on Celeste. I'm kind of just getting to a spot where I want my team to just like buy their items from the space camp right here, and I'm gonna buy my grips. I didn't do that earlier. Well, I do go that build that I was talking about earlier, where I do the Chrono plus the Fatec for the extra LB the passive damage and the ability damage. And we do see someone on the forge here. We land a really good evil ulti, and we're gonna take a look at this fight again after we go over it. And we got lucky there with ours to snipe. So the only thing I want to take note of here is just like how I move in the fight and kind of what angles I'm taking and how I'm getting there. So we know someone's on the forge. I'm walking up. I use my short dash there to get a little bit extra distance. All right. And then here I throw my RMB. I'm starting to LMB. But as soon as I kind of like see this angle and I see this ult, like both me and Saurus were kind of moving left because we don't want to walk through this choke. And I'm using my dash and to glide to go around the corner easier. And then I'm starting my LMBs, and then I throw out probably out an RB in a moment. I wall them in here in case they try to go through here. I freaking barrel stuff this guy with an RB, so it's a big slow. But he ends up dashing out of it anyways with his ult. But not like that was like a crazy fight for me, but I think the dash plus the glide to like go around the corner is like kind of a... Maybe if you're not as familiar with Celeste, you don't do that kind of movement, right? As Celeste, usually in these games, you are kind of like even though you're not that tanky, you are kind of tanky because you have your ulti, you have your wall, your dash is sometimes in a lower cooldown. Generally, I'm the one that's going first. I'm checking all the bushes, I'm walking over the abyss first. So as Celeste, you can be that person that's like kind of front and center for your team. That's one of the reasons I love playing her so much. It feels like you have so much agency on like where your team goes. Whereas if you're playing someone like Zeph, you know, you're not walking forward and like base checking, unless you're this guy. Right. Play through this. Nice. Now it looks like I use my ulti here, and then I run into a whole different team. Here, I thought I was gonna die and like lose the game here, but I end up getting out. All right, so let's take a look at this fight again. So there's a few things that went well and a few things that went bad. First off, I see pings on the map and I'm kind of looking to third party the fight. One of the things I did forget to mention is that you can't hop in the car and do the Celeste ulti thing. That's a whole nother shebang. We don't do it this game. But I do see this guy is teammates with this guy and they are split up. So when I hit this, I'm like, oh hell yeah. One of the things is that whenever you get spiked, you're stunned, and he is stunned inside my RMB. The reason he is slowed so much is also because the RMB was close to us and it was doing less damage. So it was more slow, less damage, but the slow was really good. All right. And this was one of those situations where, if we take a look at it again, I actually don't reset my LMB here. I actually go for the last three here. I'm doing the last three here because he's so low. I'm deciding that instead of resetting my LMB, I'm just going to kill him with the last three. That's one of the situations that you should use your last three. And then like we mentioned before with the RMB, it does do explosive damage, which does extra damage to Oath's shield. So notice Oath's shield is like full HP, but he literally, I killed his entire shield with 2 RMBs. So it's really good to counter Oath, but Oath should not be putting up his shield to block the RMB, or he should be parrying it. So. And then here, I thought the Oath went over here, and so that's why I kind of dashed in here, and then I realized I just ran into a whole nother team. I was really surprised when the Oath was not over here. And it was actually, in fact, another team. I did not know where this guy went. Like, maybe he feathered over the wall. I could have got dunked there if the Brawl played it slightly better. But we ended up getting out. That was maybe a situation is like, when I dash here, I should probably be eating food. But I waited a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and repair up. Here, this is exactly the moment I was talking about in my build guide. Is like, I'm at this level 11 where I can choose to take Ice Islands, I could choose to level up my RMB, or I can kind of level up here. But it's kind of like the timing of the game is like, if I want Ice Islands, this is when I want to choose it. I look at the map real quick, I'm like, I'll do RMB. I don't know if we need it this game. And honestly, it's just kind of an educated guess every game. You know, there's no way for me to really know if I'll need it or not, but you could hold on to the point for a while, but it's kind of just up to you. We see this team again. And here's exactly what I was talking about, where I was looking for maybe an ulti, and then I realized how many people are actually over here. So then I decided to place a jump pad, and I'm like, I don't know. But I ended up not going in. So I think it was a good look from me, but I'm glad I didn't go in, because there was too much going on, and I would be put in the middle of it. So by doing this feather thing, I was about to like dash, but I didn't even have ulti. Maybe I was just getting info. Maybe I thought I had ulti. I don't remember, but I was like considering trying to go in or something. But I don't even have ulti, so good thing I didn't even try. Essentially, that's like a good thing to look for, is you can look for the feather into ulti. So, regardless, pretty good. AP's here, walk in front of us. Watch the Wukong. One of Celeste's big weaknesses is fighting characters like Wukong, like Brawl, like Jhin. Because it's so hard to land your RMBs and LMBs on them, sometimes they can kind of just do what you want. A good way to play Celeste is kind of like in a... I would say like right here is like the optimal range to be hitting someone, right? If they're too close to you, or if they're too far, if they're too close to you, your LMBs are kind of like, you don't have the benefit of the homing, and it's like harder to aim. Whereas if they're too far, they'll just like sidestep your homing of the projectiles wherever. Whereas if they're exactly this distance, it's very easy to hit them with all the LMBs. There, I got air blasted as I dashed. And then here, I was looking for an ult. And the reason I use this ult here, which we'll play this through, it doesn't end up hitting anyone, but I actually call out in game that I'm really happy I ulted here, because if this hook lands from this kingpin, if I ult here, I think it saves my teammate. Whereas if I don't, then yeah, then my teammate's dead. And I don't know if I can get a res off at this point. And regardless, we talked about it before, is we are getting all of the space back for our team, alright? As soon as I ult in, these two people like dash south and they just like completely give up. This guy runs or whatever. We have all of this space now, which is perfect. Exactly what we want. Here I'm looking at this guy. I actually do a crazy tech there where I use the tree. This is like not Celeste related really, but I use the tree to block his RMB shot while I'm dashing. It doesn't really matter, but it is a very cool thing I did there. And then I end up getting the spike. As Celeste, sometimes you can kind of like get people into this checkmate where it's like they kind of have to glide first because your dash kind of keeps you at the same height. And so that's kind of like what I did there. Cool. Whenever you get a reset or get a kill, you get dash resets. So I'm just going to keep moving forward. As you can see here, we go back and we'll watch this first, actually. Watch it first. Okay, teammate died. But we're starting the res. Looks like everything's going okay. Different team is here. We get the res off. I should use one repair. I'm putting down a fan in case I need to get out or go in. It's kind of like an opportunity. It kind of freaks out this void. Able to land one RMB, and then I kind of get a good zoning one on the other one. I kind of waste that RMB there. And here I'm dashing forward, almost get knocked in by that grenade, but then land a fat RMB. We take the combustion soul. Cool. So let's take a look at this fight. So we go in. I immediately hit an R&B from pretty decently max range. Is not max range, but 422 is a big one. And then I land a shatter for 656. And that's kind of because of my build. I have the 11% increased ability damage, as well as the 5% from Sunweaver. But that was a big chunk of damage, and starts the fight out on a good note whenever you're able to chunk someone down. However, one thing I do notice is that my Saros is kind of like dying. So instead of like playing more for this fight, I kind of peel back to kind of look at the Kingpin and try to peel him away. So if Eva and I both didn't do that, he would have for sure died, but he got hooked anyway. So if I had my dash up here, I probably would have dash ulted, but I just didn't have it up before he was dead. And here's something that you could do is like, say they kept pushing him, you could always just press your ulti and res while you're ulting. That's a very good thing to do, is just stand on the wisps as Celeste, as you can res them while you're ulting. Here I just hop in the fan to use it as a dash. The Void freaks out, uses his TP on himself. I land another R&B. This one narrowly misses him. However, if it did, he probably would have just died pretty much instantly. And then here I'm using... I reset my LMBs there, but I was using one of the last 3 LMBs. Kind of hard to see, but yeah. Here, if I was better, I put up a wall facing this way to block the Ghost Nade, but alas, we managed to get the kill and everyone lived. I'm putting down a fan in case we want to go to the other island. And like I was saying before, I'm kind of the person that should check everything, so I go over there because I could always dash back. I get stunned by KP, but I'm kind of doing a lot of damage. That was one of the things I talked about before, is I healed while I was dashing there. Heal, I get slammed, but then I dash, and as I'm dashing, I start my heal. I could keep dashing, but for like a little bit longer, but I decide, you know, to get the cooldown a bit lower. And then here we go for a crazy play. If we're gonna break that down, because that one was pretty insane. I actually like freaked out and clipped it afterwards, but it was with your ulti you can invuln anything from CCs to dunks to whatnot, but the dunks will still slam you down into the abyss. So why I really wanted to kill this guy because he had the armor shredder, and I not want an armor shredder to live. So I decided to chase him over the abyss, which is always a scary thing to do. But he's up on his pole right now, and he's gonna go for a slam on me probably. So I ulti the slam, and then I cancel my ulti as soon as I can. I glide a little bit, and then I start LMBing him, and then I glide a little bit more, and I almost got spiked, but not quite, and then I feather upwards. Then we get the armor shredder. So that one was definitely a riskier play to go for, and I'm not sure if, like, you know, this time I got rewarded for it, but maybe other times I would get punished for it. But it worked out. Worked out, and it was a fun play. But ulting Jins that are going to dunk you, or KPs that are going to dunk you, or Wukongs that are going to dunk you. Super good to do. And I will go ahead and spend my money on a res beacon in case my team dies. Here I'm looking over here as I see some pings. And then one thing that kind of sucks about fighting Void as Celeste is if you ever wall and your wall goes into the Void ulti, it like kind of gets instantly disintegrated. So while it would be nice to wall for my Eva, unfortunately the wall just instantly breaks, so. I end up getting our teammate up, and I wall the boss away just to get some space so he's not hitting me. But right now we have 13 kills, which is pretty unheard of for Celeste, but it occasionally happens, so. And I take this EMP grenade, I'll drop my tree for it. And we are red armor, and we are at 28k damage right now, so. Going a little crazy here. Here I see an opportunity to maybe land an ultimate. While it probably shouldn't have landed on this guy, it did. And I see him over here, and I could have got dunked there, but luckily I don't. And then I get the dash reset. And then I see this guy, he missed his dash and hit my wall, and then we kill him too. So that was a bit of lucky quote-unquote events, but we played them well. Alright. This guy probably shouldn't have got hit by my ulti, but he did. But then we played the sequence afterwards. Regardless whether this guy gets hit by my ulti or not, this ult would be good because we're just forcing this team away, and we can always play over here. and then kind of force them out. And we know that this team is weak because they have a crown and they're only a duo. So. I see him over here because you can kind of see the spiking thing. And then I saw this guy was a tree and I was just hoping it wasn't a kingpin, but the oath could have slammed me too. I wall him. He dashes into the wall. He should have waited a little bit till he was lower to dash through the wall. And then once he dashes into the wall, I know he's checkmated and I can just dash over him and just spam LMBs on him and he has to die. Like he has no other play. He's just dead. Unless he lands some great feathering. Cool. But I think they just managed to res instantly on the left. Here I was like looking for maybe an opportunity to do something. This is one of those situations where wall is super good. You see, I walled here and I stopped it right on their choke. And it kind of forces them all to go down here. I could have dashed to dodge that grenade even better. It looks like 2 of them got past, but then we get the third. So just like before, I'm kind of the one that's like face checking everything. And I knew that like this oath could just go for a dunk on me because he almost did it before. I decided to like kind of bait it. Our Eva definitely almost died to it though, so maybe that wasn't the best play because my teammate almost got baited. This was a technique that it's not as relevant with spiking, a little bit more lenient. But if you throw out your wall right here, I throw out my wall and then I just glide behind my wall. And so even if they shot me with anything here, it would just get blocked by my wall. So it's a technique I do a lot to cross abyss. Is I wall and then I just glide over because they can't spike me. All right, I had a really bad RMB. Here we're just doing a lot of damage to these guys, but they're healing up a lot. There's 4 squads left, so there's 2 teams that we don't really know where they are. So it is a bit scary. I try a little sneaky ult here, and it was bad. But you know what? Something I always tell everyone that asks me how to land Celeste ult is you have to miss 50% of your ults to land the other 50%, right? You gotta try things, you gotta experiment. To land the crazy ults, you gotta miss the crazy ults, alright? That's not just a cope, that's like... I've missed just as many ults as I've landed, so... Here I place my wall, gets instantly killed, but our Eva lands a good ult. I definitely could have played this better here. We'll go back. There's something I really could have done way better here. Right here, I think I should just be dashing in at this void a little bit sooner, and if I got the reset from him, I would have killed this ghost a lot easier. But we end up getting him anyways, but I think it was like a play that I could have capitalized on a bit more. Now there's only 2 teams left, it's just these 2. And I go for an ult, but it may have been a bit preemptive. We do end up getting 1 kill. Here I'm looking to try to keep the pressure on. Like I was saying before, I'm kind of like the first responder, you know, I'm going in first. Alright. And I dropped the armor shredder and I decided to pick up a festering jawblade because we're up against double healer. And I just wanted anti-heal. So I literally picked it up and then used the active, and maybe I should have picked up my armor shredder right afterwards, but I go in for the fight here. He dashes south. I wall this oath off from the fan. He dashes in, knocks me away a little bit. I'm kind of cutting him off here. But then this guy barely lives, I'm pretty sure. Barely lives. He even gets hit by the fan. It's something. And we should just win the game. We should just win the game. But our Eva gets spiked. So now it's very scary. Because now they also just picked up the armor shredder off the ground that I had dropped earlier. But if you remember, if you were paying attention, there was that one point that I picked up a res beacon when I had some extra money. So I instantly place it down and we start the res. That's why if you're always picking up the loot, always picking up the gold, you'll always have maybe an extra res beacon that you can buy for situations like these where the game could have been over here. We could have had to 2v3, which we might have been able to do, but we were able to get our team up pretty quickly, especially with the 6-second reses in 1.0, which are debatably good. Next, I use my EMP grenade, or I think it's called it's called something else now, but it's a grenade that explodes armor that I got from my proto factory at the very early of the game to destroy the Zeph's armor here, and we land a stun on him with Eva. And then here, I use my Festering Jawblade as well to anti-heal them. I didn't think I'd be going Festering Jawblade Celeste, but here I am. And then they end up being just bro left. Walk out of his ult, and that's how we do it. So obviously this game we played extremely well in the later parts, but not every Celeste game is like that, and some Celeste games are like, damn, like it's hard to find footing and it's hard to find damage. But I did want to show you a game where like I did really well and there was a lot of fighting that went on. We ended up doing 52k damage, 95% kill participation, and 1200 Prisma, and I think we got like 50 RP from that. It was a super good game. The one things that I want you guys to take away from this is like, I did get a lot of kills, but I wasn't like diving in that recklessly. I'm kind of playing more calculated, playing around my cooldowns significantly is like, do I have my wall up? Do I have my dash up? Do I have my ulti up? Like, what am I doing whenever I have all those up? Playing aggressively, but playing calculated. And then if something goes wrong, I have a few things in my back pocket. For instance, the revive beacon, the EMP grenade that I could still use to get us out of like a tough situation. But I hope you guys learned something from the Celeste guide. This took me a while to make, so consider subscribing if you hadn't. Only around like 15 or 20% of my viewers are subscribed, so just double check it if you want. I will be posting a lot of Celeste content in the future, so be sure to check it out. Peace, y'all.